going to play out, and how are the championship tables going to reflect the results as we head further into the World Series of this season? Well, Kylian Drumont continues the strong momentum for Subaru as they line up on pole position here today with Thomas Leboutelet and BMW alongside. Then it's Porsche. Disappointment in London. They bounce back to start P3 ahead of Mikolaj Sedjak in fourth position, the Polish driver who makes his debut for Nissan. Then it's Pole Europe for Mazda, P5. Valerio Gallo in the Honda NSX is sixth on the grid. Lucas Bonelli lines up P7 for Mercedes AMG, and Alfiler with the Saudi Arabian driver for Toyota, P8. De Bruyne lines up P9, and then you've got Giorgio Mangino in 10th position for Lexus. João Jesus for Ferrari in 11th position, and Jay Murphy, the McLaren driver. A lot of support for him here tonight. And now, of course, our first look at the tyre strategies for the first time. Now, we can see the top two, Drumont and Leboutelet, they've started on the soft combat of tyre, which to me indicates that they're going to try and make a break early.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen the pace from Drumont in qualifying, and of course Leboutelet, both very quick over a single lap. Last thing they want to do is ruin the ability to run that pace by running in a pack. So, yeah, go for soft tyre. I'm surprised to see Sedjak there running the hard tyre in P4. So he will be basically in the way of all the medium runners behind, but the longer he can keep them there, the better for his race. So definitely some strategy in those tyre calls already. Yeah,
it seems like he's sort of trying to go ugly early, as it were. Get those hard tyres out the way as soon as he possibly can. Hold the pack up while they're all quite close behind and see whether he can use that to his advantage. Well, let's see what will happen. Who has called the strategy right? Who will be taking the checkered flag and those all-important 6 points? We're about to find out as Gran Turismo World Series 2 for the Manufacturers' Cup here in Berlin is underway. Drumont and Subaru lead them down towards the first corner, followed by Leboutelet and then Serrano and then Sedjak in the Porsche and the Nissan respectively. Don't expect any dive bombs down into that first corner, but Serrano closing up. I say that, there are some dive bombs taking place as Jura is making hay whilst the sun shines. He's already on the attack against Sedjak, but Sedjak goes back through on Valerio Gallo as well as Jura, back up into fourth. So moves being made in the mid-pack there, and Sedjak looking a little bit vulnerable as we expected on those hard tyres.
Yeah, Sedjak there showing Jura on the outside of the circuit, really hard defending early on, but you're seeing the difference there, those hard tyres. They take a while to fire up, they're going to be cold right now. When they're cold, they have less grip. So right now, Jura, Bonelli, Gallo all making advantage of the fact they have a softer compound, is up to temperature quicker, and they're just able to drive by him like he's standing still. You could argue maybe that's not a bad thing because they're not going to squabble so much, but if you're Sedjak, you've gone from fourth to seventh in about 3 corners.
Yeah, losing track position means, of course, you're going to have to gain that a little bit later on. You can see fairly robust driving from Sedjak coming through the Michael Schumacher S there as well. He's just got Alifa in the Lamborghini right behind him, who's on the medium compound of tyres. Then you've got 3 other hard job runners. Meanwhile, sharp end of this race, nothing really to report from Drumont and Leboutelet. They've cleared off about a second or so ahead of Jose Serrano, as one would begin to expect. First corner incident here is under investigation, as we can see on our screen as well. We'd love to get a replay of that and see exactly what happened. We did see some dive bombs to the inside there for Pole Euro, but was there a bit more that meets the eye that we perhaps didn't quite manage to make a break of? Either way, we go on to the Nordschleife layout for the first time, and it's Drumont in front from Leboutelet, and now is where those soft tyres on these medium speed corners are going to be really having their advantage.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know the GP circuit is in any way related to this track. When you get onto it, it's completely different. You go from long runoffs to barriers being far away, gravel traps, to basically if you make a mistake, you are in that barrier. And lots of curbs here, you have to memorise which ones you can and which ones you can't touch. It's a unique challenge just to get around here on your own, let alone when you're sharing the circuit with 11 other maniacs. So a lot of fun there. But speaking of maniacs, here's Valerio Gallo in the NSX. Very, very fast driver and trying to close the gap between himself and Jose Serrano. So Serrano is the leader of the medium runners. This is something you have to keep an eye on right now as we go to the front of the field. Drumont having to try and defend from Thomas Leboutelet, who's going to look maybe around the outside here. Not really a spot to get that done, but again we're seeing the Achilles heel of that Subaru. They'll be able to just drive up to the back of it, but decides better of it as Thomas Leboutelet. He's going to stay in second place for now.
Drumont a little bit deep though going into that right-hander. I wonder if that might have compromised him a little bit, but he's certainly feeling the pressure here of his compatriot. The two Frenchmen at the sharp end of this race, and you can see how Leboutelet is able to use that slipstream to his advantage to close up. I don't think he's going to invent something into this section of the circuit, because it will both send them into the barrier, and indeed, Le Boutellé thinks better of it. But the question is here for Kylian Drumont, how long can he keep Le Boutellé behind? Is it going to cost them time, though, as well? Because Serrano's there, 2 seconds off the back of them. If the top two start squabbling amongst one another, all that's going to do is bring them back into the gap that they've created and bring Serrano, Gallo, potentially, into play for this.
You have to think of the long game here, because everyone's got different strategies, everyone's trying their own little thing here. So I think if I'm Thomas Boutellé in that BMW, I'm thinking, right, okay, I know I'm going to pass this guy on the back straight if I'm within half a second. So I'll just stay there for now and let this guy pull me along, because in the medium speed corners, that Subaru is super quick. Anyway, back to T1. I think there was an incident here with Giorgio Mangano. Contact there. Oh, it's a Supra there. Toyota getting spun, kind of brilliant, but then Mangano spat out by João Jesus there. So I'm not quite sure. No further action from the stewards. I think that was just everyone trying to go for the same bit of tarmac there, didn't they?
It's difficult, isn't it, when it concertinas up in corners like that, especially in the first corner, and, you know, it's not particularly wide part of the circuit. It really does bottleneck up, so I guess race direction is just deeming it, you know, first corner dramas, don't do it again. As long as that doesn't happen any further times, then it should be all right. So let's look at the drivers here who are on the hard compounds of tyres, the likes of Sejak, Jesus, De Bruyne and Murphy. How are they going to play this one? Because, of course, they're hemorrhaging time at the moment. They're sort of taking the pain early on, but in theory, the race will come back to them in the latter stages, depending on what strategies they go for. You can see that brought up on our screen at the moment. You can get 2 laps out of the soft tyres if you're particularly careful. But if you're the likes of Le Boutellé and Drumont, I mean, look, they've cleared off 3 seconds at the sharp end of this one. They're not hanging about here. They're not saving their tyres, are they?
Yeah, but look at this as well. The difference here in speed up the hill. Just in that draft, I'm surprised Le Boutellé went for 6th gear there, maybe just to save that little bit of fuel. Fuel is also a concern around here, by the way. You have to make sure you're fueled up the right amount to get to the end. It sounds simple, but it's hard to do in practice when you're there driving these things around the ring. But yeah, as you say, Tom, like, it's just trying to make sure you don't fall too far back at this point. And it just, I get the impression that Le Boutellé is just kind of biding his time. And we see the background there, Jose Serrano, that is the gap visually to third position and the start of those medium runners. So for the carousel for the first time, great bit of racetrack there. You really feel the car fighting for its life through there, and Gallo there leading the charge for 4th place onwards. But I say, if anything, falling back from Serrano a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, because I was mentioning about the hard shot runners, you know, damage and limitation for them, but exactly the same story for the medium shot runners. You've got now 3 sort of sets of drivers all in their own group, all running their own strategies, and this is what happens in the Manufacturers' Cup when you have races like this, is that, you know, they're not necessarily the most action-packed ones in the first couple of laps, but towards the end, once all the strategies all work out, the fuel stops, the tyre saving and so on and so forth, once they've all taken place, you get a really exciting crescendo to this race. So the likes of Drumont and Le Boutellé, fine, the race is great for them in these early stages of it, but the latter stages, they're going to be taking that pain that the drivers on the medium and the hard runners are suffering from now, so they're going to be slower towards the end of the race, and the converse for those behind.
Yeah, coming through the last third of the Nordschleife. Now, my favourite bit of racetrack this, it's just so fast, so flowing. You have to really trust the car through here, especially through this section here. You come over the Flansgarten jump, see it coming off the floor there, and then you're met immediately with the Stefan Beloff S coming up now, where the car just skips all over the place. You almost have to just trust in that mysterious aerodynamic thing that you can't see, but it is there, and then just thread the car through the curves. It's an exhilarating piece of racetrack, but it is very much one at a time through there, as Gallo has pulled away slightly from Paul Ura. Now, what I'm interested in seeing now is whether Drumont has managed to gap Le Boutellé, which he has a little bit, a second now. That is kind of getting out of draft range, so that might mean Le Boutellé won't be able to pass here going down towards T1.
Yeah, let's see whether Le Boutellé can use the straight line speed to his advantage if he can close up, as you say, from that gap that has been created. What about Lucas Benelli, Mercedes-AMG? Benelli, we can see him there, very interesting driving position that he has. He sort of sits quite close to the wheel, almost on it, really, whereas you look at Paul Ura, much more relaxed in terms of his arm positioning there. And now Benelli has got the bit between his teeth because he's got the slipstream and he's got the straight line speed to take advantage of Paul Ura as we come down the Döttinger Höhe. Side by side we go between the Mazda and the Mercedes. It's going to going to be nice and easy for the Mercedes to go through. But what about, yeah, exactly that, what I was about to say, the Honda, because they're going to get boxed in here. Valerio Gallo loses one place, loses two places potentially, because Paul Ura is now side by side with Gallo as they come up and over the rise. It's always a bit tense and a bit sketchy coming through here 2 by 2, but Gallo just decides to not fight it too hard as the top two at the sharp end of this one come into the pit lane at the end of the first lap off the soft tyres. Now, which way are they going to go in terms of their strategy?
Yeah, fresh set of the virtual Dunlop tyres going on. Our first Dunlop pit stop, I think this is, Tom. So cool to have Dunlop, of course, now as official partner of the Gran Turismo World Series. What's going on though? So softs come off, mediums go on there for Drummond, same for Le Boutelet as well. Kind of Bruin coming in, getting off those hard compounded tyres early, only doing one lap on those. So I guess going for 3 on the medium then, or 4 on the medium, it must be.
It's going to be an interesting one to see how that works out. You know, medium tyres, they're okay, but, you know, in terms of their longevity, certainly not as good as the hard tyres. The converse is the hard tyres are a few seconds a lap slower than the medium. So I guess he's just trying to take the pain for that and get off it. You can see there he's a full-time automotive engineering student, is Kai de Bruyne, so he's well versed in sort of adapting to changes on the fly. And let's see whether that's one that will pay off for the Dutchman, who, of course, as we know, is still seeking his first podium in the Gran Turismo World Series. Meanwhile, sharp end of this race is now occupied by Jose Serrano, who's in the lead. Lucas Benelli, who, of course, we saw getting ahead of Ura and Gallo down the Dottinger at the end of the last lap, now sits in second in the Mercedes-AMG. Ura's into third. Gallo's here just keeping a watching brief in fourth place. It's interesting as well, looking at the likes of Drummond and Le Boutelet, because they went from the soft to the medium tyres. I mean, Le Boutelet, he has to follow what Drummond's doing if he doesn't want to lose track position. That's the problem with being second on the road. You've kind of got to follow the strategy and then work it out later on.
Yeah, I mean, that's not always a bad thing though, because I think if the positions were reversed, you'd just see the same sort of thing. You would see the Le Boutelet leading from Drummond. It would just be a waiting game. And sometimes it is that. I mean, it's a high-speed game of chess. I say that a lot in these broadcasts, because it is. These guys are at the level now where strategy often decides the race. The actual driving performance is so close, so we'll keep an eye on those and keep you informed. Benelli's struggling there for the first part of the Hudson-Back complex, just trying to get the car turned in. Of course, that AMG front engine, so prone to sometimes a little bit of understeer. Looks like it's really struggling with the front end through there, but able to keep the pace for now. Meanwhile, looking down the field, Sejak on the hard compounded tyre is ahead of Giorgio Mangano, who started on the medium. So Sejak having a very good race at the moment, despite starting on that slower tyre.
Yeah, we know that Mangano, of course, was caught in some bother, don't we, down at that first corner, which kind of started the Lexus drivers' race off on the back foot. And they've, bear in mind, they're reigning champions. Lexus have had a dog's day so far of 2025. It's not been brilliant. Pointless in London and now down in 7th place for this. They'll be really hoping for fortune to favour them in the second half of this race, and also in the second half of the Gran Turismo World Series for 2025 as well. Benelli a little bit wide there, just going through that right-hander. Might allow Ura and Gallo to close up just a touch. It's, again, very much one at a time through this part of the lap, but you wonder whether Benelli's just starting to push a little bit harder, maybe just making a couple of mistakes and allowing a bit of a sniff of an opportunity here for Ura and Gallo possibly to see where Benelli is a little bit weaker, maybe on the exits of the corners or the entries to the corners, wherever it may be, and use that to their advantage to try and create an overtaking opportunity. Yeah,
I get the impression Benelli actually is maybe holding these guys up a little bit at the moment. We'll see though. He needs to try and bridge that gap, because we know Paul Ura will go for a move, we know Gallo will go for a move if he sees one there, so always one to watch out for.
So Serrano it is that leads 2.5 seconds to the sharp end of this race. He's still got the 3 hard shot runners of Sejak, Jesus and Murphy, the 3 newcomers, 3 out of 4 newcomers who are racing this one. I have to say, Nafir Al-Flia, the Saudi Arabian driver making his debut in this event, is doing a great job of things in the Lamborghini, currently sitting in P5. Meanwhile, this is Mangano returning the favour on Sejak, just coming through that left-hander.
Yeah, I think there's Kater on there from Sejak, just basically saying, yeah, go on, mate, off you go, don't worry about it, pull me along. And yeah, there they are. Jesus there as well, of course, right behind Sejak. Man, that's that 458. I haven't heard a V8 Ferrari like that for a while. Sounds great, that thing, doesn't it?